Once upon a time, two friends joined forces to bring you the best in horror entertainment. Brian from the north, Tim from the south, each bringing their own unique perspective to the horror community. Movie reviews, Blu-ray releases, beer pairings, games, and more. Welcome to your new home for horror. This is Civil Gore.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode 307 of the Civil Gore podcast. I'm your host, Tim.
And this is Brian, and we have a fun show. We want to apologize, of course, because we kind of dropped the ball. Forgot to even tell you guys we weren't able to get a episode out last week. But the good news is we'll have this one. You should be listening to this on Halloween, which is a nice festive day to listen to a horror podcast. And also, we should have two next week because we'll have our dismemberment, and we might have some interviews next week. So we have a lot of stuff in the works, and it kind of like. See, I think that's what happens sometimes where, and this just happens with kind of any kind of show or any kind of production you do, you plan guests, you plan events. And if that gets kind of delayed and sidetracked and and that's kind of what you were counting on to do, it kind of throws you off. So we were a little unprepared and timing wise, but we also had some travel in there, which you'll hear about in this episode. And with just the general Halloween coming up and our horror challenge going on and our other horror challenge going on, we apologize for not letting you guys know about the missing episode.
Yeah, it's as you guys know, running a podcast is especially a weekly one is a huge time commitment, and we try to get them out as regularly as we can, but with actual daytime jobs and families and travel and horror challenges and everything else going on, sometimes things get shifted around. And quite honestly, a lot of times we're having to work around interviews that we're doing. So that kind of forces our hand into doing it on very specific days and very specific timeline. So it's a challenge, but I'm hoping that you guys understand we're putting out free content. We don't do advertisements. We have no commercials, so we're not.
It's probably why we've not yet done a.
That's
Patreon,
probably why we don't have commercials. They're like, God, you can't count on you guys to do anything.
That or Patreon or sponsors, anything that basically require us to actually do something timely, on time. Yeah.
So, but anyway, I hope you guys understand that this is a labor of love. So we're doing the best we can.
This is going to be a packed show because not only do we're going to go over Salem's Lot 2024, which that's why I was so brief on my horror challenge post, because I figured. This one, since the original mini-series is such an iconic film and my horror development, it's kind of historic for me because it's a movie that still is one of the few horror movies that will still kind of scare me a little as of at this point, where nothing really does scare me in horror films, but there's the scene. So I figured I'm like that. Movie needs to be discussed, I think, fully, and what better way to do it on our Halloween episode. And we also have some trip reports, trip reports for us, a couple of screener reviews. Our beer pairing is back. We haven't had that in a while. Our fan topic foo is back. We haven't had that in a while, so this is good. I think we have some good stuff.
Good fan topic foo question, by the way. And also, I've been wanting to talk about Salem's Lot because I've got a lot of thoughts on Salem's Lot.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
So. All right, well, let's get right into it. This is our first chop. All right, Brian, so as you know, this past weekend, I went up to my dad's for his annual Halloween birthday / Halloween party bash. He has every year up at his land. He's got a barn up on, can't remember how many acres of land. He's got several acres of land. He's got a stage built up there, so he always hires musicians to come out and play. This year, I can't remember the name of the guy that he hired to do the music, but he was really good. Just, guy on a guitar doing cover songs and stuff, but he did like everything classic rock country. He was really, really good.
Nice. Yeah, I know. Yeah. And I'm so mad. I said this year was the year I was going to come here, but when I said that too, I was I don't think I had living in California really yet. So, I might have said it again last year, but a little difficult.
That's especially a little tough, now
yeah. And with California, literally I found out, sorry, and I'll let you get back to this because one of my favorite things of the year is when Tim tells about his dad's like Halloween weekend. Just real quick though, it's funny. I noticed I could basically, where I am living now, can reach the 4 major haunt events, which is Not Scary Farm, Halloween Horror Nights, Fright Fest, and Howl-O-Scream, and not even to mention if I wanted to throw in the Disney one too while I'm at
Oh
it.
my gosh, that's awesome.
So, which
So
yeah, that's an event in itself. I think that one will have to be like one year I just pick the Disney one because it's so
yeah,
expensive and timely. And Obi seems to be not happy with our podcast right now, and I'm not playing with him. I know, Babash. It's okay. It's
yeah.
okay.
Mia could care less. She's asleep, so she's like, whatever, do what you got to do.
It's a schnauzer in him. They
Yeah.
like attention.
So well, I will say this was not a typical year. Usually my brother comes up.
Oh, right. He's away. Or is he away, or is just Amanda
He's
away?
he and Amanda are away. They went to a wedding in Mexico. Well, I can't
Oh,
at
okay.
a all-inclusive resort, so I can't blame them for missing the Halloween party. But typically he comes up. So then we have, usually we'll make an excuse to either sometimes we'll get a hotel, sometimes we'll camp out and do a whole tent thing, depending on the weather. But this year with him not going, it ended up being a very like quick turnaround because we didn't want to take the kids out of school. So we really literally just like went up Saturday afternoon, did the party, and came back Sunday. So it was very, very
Well,
quick
not even
turnaround.
scare wins, huh?
Yeah, no, we didn't even do Scarewinds. So it was a very quick trip. It was kind of unusual in that way because usually we'll try to build in a Carowinds day and all that. So, and then when we got up there, it just starts pouring down raining. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's
Oh
like an
no.
hour before the party and it's just pouring rain. So I actually thought the event might get rained out, which is the first time in like 25 years I've ever seen a drop of rain on that weekend. So I was getting really nervous. So anyway, we went over there. Luckily, the rain cleared up. It never rained again the entire night. So actually,
Right.
but I think it dampened like the participation. Like I think like there's probably
Literally and figuratively.
yeah, there was like maybe 20 or 25 people that just didn't show. I think because of the
Oh
rain.
no.
So it's kind of a smaller crowd. But my dad he built a giant cooker, and when I say giant, it's made out of people make cookers out of oil drums, right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
drums. Well, he couldn't find a drum that was like reasonably priced enough until he like stumbled upon one on like Facebook Marketplace or something that was like $100. He's like, oh, I'll just go grab that one. When he gets there, it's like a freaking giant tanker thing. Like it's like
Oh my
big enough
God.
to put an entire cow inside. And he's like, well, for $100, I might as well try it. So he made this giant freaking cooker on the back of a trailer that does wood and gas.
Oh, that's awesome though.
It's awesome. It's so heavy. The lid on it is so heavy. He had to build like a weighted lever system to help you pull the lid up because you like one person can barely lift the hinge on the thing. So it was really impressive, but he cooked like a big barbecue brisket thing. And so it was really good. So we had great food and everything. And the music, obviously. So then we did he did the haunted hayride. So he has a cemetery built. I need to post these on Instagram, but he has a cemetery built out on his land, out in the woods, which would be bizarre if you ever like ran across it accidentally. But it's like full of Halloween props. He just keeps it up year round because he uses it every Halloween. And it's full of like tombstones. And he built these giant like Grim Reaper looking things in these black hood. I told you about them on the last episode. They look like Dementors from
Oh
Harry
yeah,
Potter. Is what they
yeah.
look like. He's got lights back there. Is really kind of like a cool cemetery set. And what he does is he takes the tractor and he hauls people out back there. And we do a haunted hayride. And he always gets people that are dressed up to go back there and be scare actors. So this year I did, and I posted my picture of my scarecrow mask I got this year. So Anna and I decided to do a horror twist on Wizard of Oz, and she was Dorothy, and she had blood all over her, like the scarecrow had attacked her. I was the evil scarecrow, and so
Yeah,
we
I
went
love
out.
that. I like that
Yeah.
picture you sent me. Yeah.
So we went out to the cemetery and we staged a scene where I had a pitchfork and I grabbed Anna and she was screaming and I was holding the pitchfork, and then so my dad comes with the hayride with all the people on the back of it, usually who are drunk by that point, so they're really in the mood for it. And we did this whole scene where I'm like stabbing her with a pitchfork and she's screaming, and then I ran after the tractor with the pitchfork and everybody screamed, and and it goes on back through the woods. We had other kids like jumping out at them and stuff. So it was a lot of fun. It's my one chance a year to be a scare actor, so it's a lot of
Nice.
fun.
Yeah,
So
speaking of the hayride thing, real quick, I noticed, I didn't realize, but only a couple hours away, I think, is the place where they film Fear Farm. I need to go to that.
you
Like,
should go to that. Yeah,
yeah,
like the
because
corn maze.
yeah, and then with the this paintball shooting on the thing, because
Oh
and
yeah,
I sent it to Emily, and she said, to confirm it, and I think she said, yeah, sure, that's the right one. So I want to go to that next year.
yeah,
Need to put that
definitely.
on my docket, the 15 events that I have next year. Poor Julie's gonna kill me next year.
So then we went to the Hickory Grove Haunted Trail. So as you guys have heard about in past years, I believe it's the oldest outdoor haunt in North Carolina. I believe it's put on by their volunteer fire department, and it's held at this place that it looks like it's a driving range. I guess it's some kind of golf driving range place. So they got a lot of land out there, but there's woods beside it, and that's where the haunted trail is. Completely outdoors, and it's $20 a person. And what they do is they take you. What I really like about it is they pulse the line. There's no Congo line. They
Nice,
take
nice.
you in groups of no more than like 10.
I think you have to at outdoor haunts.
Yeah, because you can't get people be running all over the place.
Well, yeah, but then it kind of I think with the outdoor haunt more than those indoor haunts, though, it's like there's, when you're in an indoor haunt, you're like assaulted with lights and sound and things to look at. So really, like you're so focused on things that it probably doesn't even matter that you're kind of conga lining it in. But in an outdoor haunt, that's not the norm to have like walking in a line of like 500 people.
Right,
You need to
yeah.
have small groups. It makes sense. So
So they have a guide that kind of wears like a glow in the dark necklace, and they don't really interact with you or anything. They just tell you the ground rules, like, hey, obviously no photography, they won't let you record on this one either. No recording. Um, stay with the group. Don't never walk past the guide. Can't get in front of her. That
you
kind of
walks
thing.
behind the rows.
Yeah. But then she basically she just kind of leads you through the entire thing. As long as you stay behind her, you're good. Now, remember last year we had that awful experience with the teenagers that were
Oh,
high and they were
yeah.
cussing and screaming the whole time. Well, this year I told Olivia, I was like, number one, we're going early so that there's no
Yeah.
teenagers because they tend to go late. And number two, if we do see that we're going to get in a group like that, we're getting out of line. Like I'll just say no, just put us in a different group. Well,
Yeah, I don't
fortunately,
blame
we
you.
were in a group. The people behind us that were in our group was a family with a younger kid, so they were like totally cool. Like
Oh, that's good.
they weren't
Yeah, that's
disruptive or anything. So so we had a really good group. I will say I was a little disappointed this year, and the reason I was disappointed is twofold. Number one, they did not change it up very much at all from last year, if at all. It might have been almost the exact same layout, which is kind of disappointing because usually they do a few twists on it. And this one, I can only think of a couple places where it was a little different. And
mm.
then the other thing I was a little disappointed in was there seemed to be a lot more dead spots this year. I don't know if they had fewer actors or what was going on, but there seemed to be a lot of segments where we were just basically kind of walking through the woods to get to the next thing, and there was like nothing. Like it was very dead.
Could be. I mean, there's still like I feel like there's still like other than the big haunt places, I feel like there's like a bit of a fallout with like, in terms of like still like from maybe COVID hiring is still not all the way back with for theme parks and stuff because
Yeah.
remember when we were there like when we went to Howl-O-Scream the last time, it felt like there were a lot less like
Yeah,
things going on.
I don't know what it was, or we did go kind of early. Was it because it was early and they put more people in it later? I don't know, but
Could it
it's
be the
still fun.
hurricane? Like that people just couldn't get there?
It could be. I mean, yeah, who knows? But I mean, it was still fun. I mean, there's like segments like, and to give you guys an overview, if you haven't heard me talk about it before, so this haunted trail has multiple buildings. When I say buildings, like basically shed type shacks all out dotted throughout the woods. So you'll be
Mm.
walking through the trail. There might be scare actor stuff happening on the trail, and then you'll go through like a little indoor section, and then you'll come back out, and then you'll do some trail, and then you'll go through another little indoor section. And those things, I guess, stay up permanently all year round. There's a lot of props. They use a lot of not animatronics, but like dummies, mannequins, dummies, that kind of those kind of props, coffins. So you get to see a lot of that kind of stuff. But one of the coolest ones they have that I really love is there's a shack that they take you to, and you have to go in single file because it puts you in like a rat maze. But
Oh, that's cool.
the width of the walls is literally like there's no way two people could stand side by side. It's probably about, maybe like 3 feet. And your almost shoulders are brushing the sides and you're stuck in this little rat maze. And I'm usually claustrophobic, so usually that would like freak me out. But for
Yeah.
some reason, I just find this like so much fun, and it's pitch dark. So you're like trying to squeeze through this little rat maze, trying to get through in the dark. And there's nothing jumping out at you or scary, but it's just like, it's very disorienting
Again,
and
yeah, again, the outdoor
uncomfortable.
haunt leads to leads itself for that kind of fears because it's like it is you feel more abandoned and out there. When you're in a
Yeah.
haunt an inside haunt, you're in a building. You're
Yeah.
gonna if you keep following, you're gonna get out. But there's I think there's this like subconscious fear in an outdoor haunt that even when you go into like a little shack like that, like could you not like find your way back? Yes, there's someone hiding you,
Yeah.
but it's just that like that thoughts that like sneak into your head just for that split second.
They have one section I always love this section. They have one part where you go into the shack and it's like blasting heavy metal music, like blasting it, and it's all strobe lights. And there's like scare actors running around there with power tools, like
Oh God.
drills and like chainsaws. So you're going in there and it's like, and it's loud and crazy and it's
Oh, God.
strobing and it's so much fun.
Did you
They
check
had
on that poor family behind you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are
They had,
dragging the little kid at that point?
there's an abandoned school bus out there, and the haunt actually takes you through the school bus. So you
Oh,
get
that's cool.
onto the school bus, and usually they have like kid dummies, like dummies of like dead kids in there.
Reminds me of
And
that
then
trick or treat
yeah,
thing.
and then
Yeah.
as you're walking through, like they have some kind of thing that snaps at your feet, like a like crackle things,
Oh,
like to
nice.
scare you. And then there's one section that's really nice is where they play the Halloween theme, and there's a really good guy that plays Michael Myers. He comes out and he'll stalk you as you're walking, and he'll come out at different places and stuff. That's
Oh, that's
really
cool.
cool. Yeah, so it was, like I said, it's always a lot of fun. This year, I think my only disappointment was I was hoping maybe that there would be some more newer stuff, and there really wasn't. And then you compound it with fewer scare actors, which the scare
Yeah.
actors that are there are really, really good. Uh, don't get me wrong, but I was hoping for like a few more. I felt like it got a little slow and a little dead in spots, but still always a great time. I'll always go to the Hickory Grove Haunted Trail when I go up there, because it's just a tradition at this point. And
Yeah.
it's a ton of fun. I just love the outdoor haunts. Just are just so cool because you're out there in the woods.
You should reach out to them because basically on my next thing about when I talk, I'm going to just give you a brief thing on the experience I had, but you should reach out to them and say, you do the horror podcast, could you, promote it, you help promote it for them. I mean, you say you
Yeah.
can talk, you literally, you can go back and say, listen, I promoted this thing every year. I would love to come through. And if you'd let me film it, I won't air it until after the Halloween season, just so, but I'll promote it on audio, and then afterwards we can show a highlight or some highlights of it, something like that, because you never know, because that's what, that Terror in the Creek place reached out to us. And so much so that I'm honoring, what they requested is, I recorded the entire event, us through on, by the way, the new iPhones, the video. I showed up with my GoPro, and I had my iPhone obviously with me, and my old video camera, because the GoPro is not good for dark. And, but I watched some YouTube video about how to make this setting, and they're like, oh, you'll get much better dark footage. I went there and literally I'm looking at what it looked like through my cell phone and what it looked like through the GoPro. And it looked like I had a hover on the GoPro. It was so dark. I'm like,
Really?
yeah. And I'm like, I don't know how my phone's going to be anyway. It might just be the where I am now. So thank God I brought my old video camera, and I was testing that a little bit, and I'm looking at that and I'm like, you know what? This is not good. Literally, the new iPhone was the best thing. It brightened up like on its own without putting a light there. So you got like when it needed to be dark, it was dark, but it's still anything that needed to be seen could be seen through it.
Because usually the iPhone cameras are like behind every other Android camera.
Yeah,
They're usually terrible.
Well, this is the Pro Max I got. And so far, I am like so impressed with the amount of things you could do with this.
The pros but I think the pros do have much better cameras in them.
Yeah, no, this and it has got the new side feature, and it's got different lenses. things you can do and effects and everything. And so I just went into, and it automatically went into low light mode. And it wasn't like green. It was literally just really clear. It's almost as if someone was shining a light where I needed it to be. It does a really good
Wow.
job. It just opens the shutter speed in a good way, I guess. But anyway, so but yeah, you should reach out to them. So I don't want to even give a full review yet because when this drops, this haunt will still be open for the week. So I promised them that I'm going to release a video the following week. I'm going to finally get our YouTube channel doing something other than our audio. So I'm going to actually edit a couple of videos of all 3 major haunts that I went to this year. And I'll show that. I may do a highlight video and then show my kind of like a director's cut in its entirety because there is a lot of like spots where it's like, it's dark and it may, I don't want to I also don't want to give away possibly the entire haunt necessarily, but I will say again, this is an outdoor haunt and it takes place in the back of this Green River tap room, which is up in Winters, California, which is kind of like this, I guess it's a farmland area, but it's got this really, it's so funny because Julie's like, oh, they got a big outdoor space back there. I thought she just meant the haunt. So when we went out of the building, literally there was this massive outdoor bar area too on top of it. We ate dinner up in the top with the bar. And it's one of those self-pour tap rooms, where you get a little card and you just try all the samples of beer. Yeah, so it was great and the food was amazing. I guess I could talk about that real quick. The restaurant was really good because the food was phenomenal. I had this chicken sandwich, very salty, but extremely good. And the beers there are pretty good because it's you could end up getting all these little samples of beer and basically as you put the card in and you pour it, it'll tell you, it measures by ounce. It'll tell you how much you just spent and how much you have the card. So it's Julie and I must have tasted combined 15 beers and it was $16 or something like that.
Oh, wow.
So
That's
yeah, we
cool.
got, it's little cups, but good. I try, I
Yeah.
finished it off with a nice little macadamia nut porter there. But so that was really good. But then you go downstairs and there's this big you go down these flight of stairs and there's big outdoor space where they have an outdoor bar, an outdoor area, and then the haunt is in the woods behind the property there with a creek, hence Terror on the Creek. And so it's an outdoor haunt and you walk through and the only thing I'll say so far is it's amazing. And if you are listening and you're in California, they're open through the following weekend after Halloween too. I definitely think you should, if you can make it there, to go to it. It's similar like what Tim says, and with the outdoor haunt, they don't conga line you. They bring you into small groups. Julie and I basically got our own personal group because we were allowed to record. So they gave us a special thing, which was really nice. And they did split us up from this kid. She even came to us. She's like, yeah, these kids up there being kind of loud and they're cursing and stuff. So I don't know if you want that on your video. I'm like, oh, I'd appreciate that if we didn't if you spaced us. So they made sure they were off ahead enough to where we went. And so I can't wait to tell everyone about it. But I'm going to save it for next week's episode. Other than I will say I have such a new appreciation, even more than I already did, for outdoor haunts because they're so fun. I just like being outside. Now I do have a big review for everybody. Should I go through? Do you want to save that for after I do the little? Should we do the little movies first, the screeners, or go into Scary Farm?
We could break it up. We could do the screeners first, and then.
So yeah, did you watch any of these two yet? Or
I did. I watched everything. So yeah.
Oh, okay, great. So I guess the first one we got was, and I knew I was gonna like this movie because it was by the guy that did Psycho Gorman, that Tim and I absolutely loved. And if you look at the guy's list of the effects that he worked on, this guy, and the fact that he also directed some great movies and some segments and some anthologies we like. Is Steven, I'm going to pronounce his name wrong, so I'm going to try and read it right. Kostansky. Steven Kostansky. And so, if you look at his IMDb, some of the stuff he did is pretty phenomenal. And the one he did this time is Frankie Frico. And I'll give you a brief summary, and then we can do a little bit of a review. It's a workaholic yuppie Connor is an existential rut until one night he catches a bizarre ad for a party hotline hosted by a strange dancing goblin, Frankie Frico. Could this be just a recipe to spice up his boring life? And so that's the premise. And let me tell you, this movie is so off the wall, bizarro.
It is so crazy. Well, my first thought was, tell me you're a child of the 80s without telling me you're a child of the 80s.
Seriously.
This movie takes place in the 80s.
Yes,
which it almost had to, because this is a throwback to all of the I saw somebody call it little creature. They called it like a genre, like little creature 80s movies,
Yeah,
like
like
Gremlins,
Critters, Gremlins,
Ghoulies,
Munchies, all of them.
Munchies. It has all that. Like it's totally that vibe. The main guy in this is just like this weird. He almost is like an adult version of Napoleon Dynamite, sort of.
Yeah,
He's so bizarre, but the little creatures in this, like I'm struggling for words to describe it, but yeah, imagine like
like a
because
puppet, but
they don't
like
make movies like the only I did think about this, Brian. I was thinking they don't make movies like this anymore, and
no,
then I
they
thought,
don't.
wait a minute, they do. One company does, and that is Full
Well,
Moon.
yes, Full Moon.
Full Moon.
That's yeah. It's like you're getting like an alternate universe Full Moon movie with this.
Yeah, Full Moon uses obviously Puppet Master. This has a very strong Puppet Master vibe. And Full Moon with their like Baby Oopsie and some of their demonic toys, some of their franchises use puppets still to this day that are very reminiscent of that 80s feel. That's the closest thing I can describe this as is it has a very much a Full Moon feel to it. Maybe a slightly bigger budget Full Moon feel.
Oh yeah, no, there's definitely a tad bit of a budget thing on here. But then again, it might have just been if you look at the Stevens just his effects work on some of the movies he's done, he may just be like he just may know the secret to make incredible practical effects on a small budget. I mean, he's done some big budget ones like he did Suicide Squad he's worked on.
Oh wow.
In a Violent Nature he did the prosthetics for. He worked on Leprechaun Returns. I think he directed that and did the prosthetic stuff for it. So he Crimson Peak, he worked on the makeup effects. He was a makeup effects technician. So if you look at his career, he knows effects. I mean, there is a ton of stuff he's done. And then let alone his directorial stuff is phenomenal too. So yeah, this movie just it almost has to be seen to be believed. Like we could tell you what goes on in this thing, and it's not even got like just the characters. I mean, it was like mixes like Napoleon Dynamite is a great reference the way that guy is. Kind of the mix of like almost like Office Space kind of humor. in there.
It's very
how he's just like, and his boss is so bizarro. Like
it's slightly. It's somewhat cringe humor, sort of like that, awkward humor. And then like these amazing practical effects. There's one thing, I hope this isn't a spoiler, but a mine cart features in this movie.
That's funny.
I got to thinking about it. I was like, what a perfect thing, because why were mine carts such a big thing back in the 80s? And I just started thinking about it. I was like, everything had a freaking mine cart. All the video games had a mine cart level.
Temple of Doom.
Temple of Doom was mine cart. I mean, did Goonies? Well, I would guess Goonies felt like it should have a mine cart in it.
It might have. I'm trying to think, did it have an actual?
Can't remember if it actually had
slide through the mine. It was close enough, but yeah.
And I was thinking, like, every video game had a mine cart level. I was like, what was it with mine carts in the 80s?
Yeah.
And like when I saw that, I just started laughing. I was like, what a perfect thing to use.
And it was such a I wonder if it was intentional. I'd love to get Steven on and
oh my god,
discuss that with him. And then did you see recently who gave his seal of approval on this movie? And I don't think for this type of movie you can get a higher seal of approval. And that was Joe Dante approved it.
Oh,
and
really?
Said how much he loved it. Yeah, he wrote a whole big thing on it.
It's one I really want to show the kids because I think it's not particularly gory. There are some like strong sexual. Yeah, there's silly gore. I will say probably the most adult thing is there's some strong sexual innuendo type stuff. Nothing graphic, but
I don't think it's anything worse than they have
innuendo.
Yeah. I mean, you showed Anna for all the Friday the 13th. It's not worse than that.
I mean, she's seen Art the Clown saw a woman's vagina now, so I don't think she's
once
fine.
You see that. And speaking of Art the Clown, do you see he's going to ring the bell at NASDAQ? I mean, talk about an indie film making his history. Oh, I forgot. I don't mean to take off of Frankie Frico's praise here, but when you brought up Art the Clown, I think we had to say something about that. Because that's just, who would have thought, like back so many years ago when we first saw the first Terrifier, the character who literally, like you just said, literally sawed a woman in half, vagina first, is going to be ringing the bell on NASDAQ. Shows how this world is embracing horror now. Is he going to slice open a Wall Street guy too in the middle of it? That'd be kind of funny.
Where's my
Frankie Frico? Where's my stocks?
Yeah, Frankie Frico. It's I don't know how to describe it. Now, to me, I still like Psycho Gorman better as a film. I thought
Yeah, I
like
do too. But
Psycho
I
Gorman
think
was the better film, but
I love
this is
Psycho
worth
Gorman. Yeah,
seeing. This is worth
yeah,
seeing. It's so bizarre and so crazy and so out there that I think, and especially if you're an '80s kid, you'll totally get this vibe for sure. And the
yeah.
next one up was Alien Country, which is another screener we got, which is another one kind of in the same, not in terms of like the puppets and stuff, but kind of in the same tone as far as like horror comedy goes.
Yeah, like I got Tremors vibes a little bit out of it.
Yeah, very good
It
Tremors
just
vibes.
yeah. This one is another one that's like it's just like I saw some people like bash it online, and then there's some people that, and I think those are the people that didn't get this movie. Honestly, I mean, is it Citizen Kane? No, it wasn't trying to be. What it was trying to be
No,
was a fun sci-fi horror comedy, and it hit it perfectly. The characters were great in it.
I
There
love
was a
the
couple of
characters in this one.
yeah, the characters great, and the two main leads were the ones that wrote it too.
Oh
So
wow, I didn't know that.
yeah, so they did a great job. Their rapport is funny. The alien like guy that they bring along with them and stuff is hilarious. There's a couple of repetitive jokes that go throughout the movie that are hilarious. It's just one of these like really like fun movies. Like, I, you know, and we said this before. Sometimes just when you go to look at a movie, especially with us when we know we're gonna have to talk about it, review it. It's sometimes hard to get to still get that feeling of enjoyment of a movie when you're trying to remember a lot of stuff for it to discuss it. But for me, when I can get past all that and still enjoy the movie and have so much fun with it, I know that the movie did something right. And to me, this movie, I think, succeeded on everything it was trying to do. It's a fun, zany horror comedy sci-fi mix, and was it silly and stupid? Yeah, it was silly and it was stupid at parts, but that's what made it work. That was so great about it.
As our friend Jeff Tucker says from the 91 Reasons podcast that we've had on the show before, he always says schlock has its purpose. And yeah, not saying this movie is what I would consider schlock, but
No, this is
what
not schlock,
what
but
his point was is there is a market for movies that are not trying to, like Brian said, are not Citizen Kane, or not trying to make you think. They're not trying to give you a lesson. It's just something to have fun and turn your brain off and watch and enjoy. And I think both these movies that we're covering, Frankie Frico and Alien Country, are both kind of fall into that category of I just want to have fun and watch something that's kind of
yeah.
silly and funny and maybe a little slightly scary horror comedy. And those are great when you're in the mood for that. Sometimes I'm not in the mood for that. Sometimes I want the A24 brain burn, slow burn, like crazy thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes I want the 70s stuff. Sometimes, but when I'm in the mood for something to just like, have fun and turn off my brain and watch, I shouldn't say turn off my brain so much. It's kind of I don't know. I
I
don't
know
know.
what you
It's
mean.
an
You
it's an
just don't want to
overused
have to
phrase,
like you
but
don't necessarily want a lesson or any
yeah,
elevation of the movie. You just want
yeah.
to
I just want to
enjoy a
watch a
movie.
movie. Yeah. I just want to escape. There's
Yeah.
escapism there,
I mean, people
but
forget that movies, that's what their intention was from the very start, to
yes,
entertain people. So
yeah,
enjoy. Yes, while we are critical of things because we're a horror podcast, we can also like appreciate when we just enjoy a movie. And I enjoyed this. I had fun. I was laughing, and it was like it was likable characters in it. I mean, one scene, I'm not going to spoil the details, but I'm just going to say the scene. So you'll know that the scene where the guy, Bo, is talking to the cop. And he has one of the lines that just cracked me up in it. I don't want. I want to say it, but I don't want to say it because I want everyone to enjoy it. But
yeah,
just watch the scene between Bo and the cop later in the movie. The female, I think she a cop or is she a? I don't know, what is she technically? Is she maybe the detective or something? I don't know. But
yeah. I don't know what her exact title is.
but she's that scene cracks me up, and I watched it twice, and both times that part cracked me up, and you'll see what I mean when you see it. But so yeah, those are great. They're both out now. You should be able to find them on VOD. So definitely grab a look at that when you get a chance. Frankie Frico and Alien Country. So now I'll go into because this is I'll try and keep this as quick as I can, but it's a big haunt. Of course, it's one of the major haunts, which is not Scary Farm, which I've been almost as much as Halloween Horror Nights that first time. This has been always a bucket list place I wanted to go to because technically this started before
Hmm.
um, you know, uh, Halloween Horror Nights, and this was
Oh,
like,
before you begin, I have
oh
one
yeah,
question.
yes.
Where does this fall in terms of quality of the haunts? In like, because I'm always curious, like, when you look at a regional haunt like a Six Flags or a Scarewinds or Busch Gardens, and then you have your Universal maybe at the top. Where does Knott's fall?
Well, this is like rivals Universal, like
Wow.
possibly
Okay.
in
Cool.
spots that, in fact, some of the things are, they do better than Universal actually.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
yeah, it's I mean, and this is, Jeff Tucker. He hosts, actually. It's funny you mentioned him because he hosted the he's really involved when those at the when they announced all the houses for the year.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I think is so good about? I mean, there are definitely some drawbacks to the way this is, because the way, like, I think, because it's a little bit more, and I'm not trying to insult anyone when I say it was a little more affordable, the crowds could tend to be more packed in. And
Mm-hmm.
Knott's is the way the park is, it's a circular park, and you gotta walk around in there. And but but I think the thing is like there's spots in it where it gets really congested, and no matter how many, and they had remember when we couldn't find one, like a popcorn vendor at the Howl of Scream that one year because it was so short staffed? This was the opposite. There was like literally stands and bars everywhere, but it was so crowded that every line was long. And there is a I'm going to get on a soapbox later with something about it. And I know this is going to sound so horrible. I'm going to sound like such a haunt snob or something, but I'll get to it later. But yeah, no, in terms of quality, this is this is the higher echelon. This is like Halloween Horror Nights. Like Emily, I think she told me that she liked Scary Farm better when she went. And a
Mm.
couple of people have told me, I think Katie Hettenbach told me that Scary Farm was better a lot of times. I think it's definitely a different thing. Like, because, okay, so you don't have the properties here. So you have all original haunts, all creations of Knott's. And what they do is sometimes, what I understand, there's some haunts that repeat each year, but like with like subtle tweaks because they're
Mm-hmm.
legend. And then they made an announcement like, okay, this is its last year kind of thing. So I think there's just more of this like kind of like history element to the haunts here, where it's like, that like Knott's is a very historical park. I mean, that lake compound still fight for which is the longest running first ever theme park kind of thing. And where Lake Compound's more of an amusement park, Knott's is definitely a theme park. So I'd say, why are they even competing? They're two totally different style parks.
Mm-hmm.
you know. So, but anyway, so we were there that day, and so what they have a cute little event during the day. So for the kids, they have what they call Knott's Spooky Farm. So like the kids, this was when we took my niece and nephew, because my niece's birthday, and she loves going to Knott's. This is her second year we've done this, so she was in heaven. And what's great is they bring you, like, when the kids walk in, they give them little trick or treat bags. So when you're going through the park, they have people handing out candy all over the place. So it's like, it's very, and they have some of the foods out for the day for the Scary Farm throughout the day, certain things, and they do a great overlay of the rides. Like the log flume has forgot what the thing is. They do some kind of like haunted overlay to that, like, but it's family friendly. And then for
Mm-hmm.
the Calico Mine Ride, which is normally just a fun old mine ride, they do a Candy Princess theme thing in there. So where you're in the mines and you're looking for the Candy Princess. So they do a
Oh,
lot
that's
of cool
cool.
things for the kids. Yeah. And it was very cute. I was telling her about how Knott's, she heard about the boysenberry at Knott's, and she asked what it was. So I was telling her all about how Knott's is famous for the boysenberry. And so I bought, like, when we were online waiting for so I forgot we were waiting for something. I ran in and grabbed like a little boysenberry tart. So she had her first taste of boysenberry, was hooked. So they had these, I don't know if I showed you those purple cookies. They were boysenberry cookies too, which were probably one of the best cookies I've ever had in my life. It was so good.
Mm.
And so I brought them that the next day. We got them the next morning too, because Knott's has a bakery that rivals Dollywood. I'm telling you. And there's two of
Wow.
them. There's one out in the marketplace and one inside the park. So, and they make all, like, everything boysenberry, everything, like, that was terrible for you, but so good to eat. I said, now that technically during the day because of my Cedar Fair upgrade gold all park passport thing. I get Knott's is basically included in that, so I think this year I want to finally go to the Boysenberry Festival, which I've been trying to go to. But
Oh, that
that's
sounds fun.
it. But that's not what everyone wants to hear. But they want to hear about the haunts and everything. So we got there, and it's funny. So a little tip. So Knott's is one of those parks that actually very strict on what you could bring in during their haunt at night. Universal didn't care. I walked in with any kind of bag. They check it, and they put it through the scanner, and they're good. Knott's, though, you need to have either a small fanny pack that measures a certain type length, or you can get one of those clear like stadium bags. So I happened to be on that like recent Prime Day thing, whatever they had. I got for $12. I got a little backpack that's totally clear, so I was able to use that and bring my camera in and all that stuff, and it was great. They look through it. You go through security, you go through the scanner, and then look at your bag. Everything nice and neat. But it's a good thing to have when it's on sale on Amazon. I saw 1 million people with this thing, and it's a great little backpack, and it's clear. So if you also go to sporting events or any place or concerts now that they are really strict on, great thing to have. So I'll share the link maybe later on one of our pages. But so anyway, we showed up there. We got there definitely earlier than we wanted to, but I wanted to make sure we got in there and kind of get through. We had we did our we had to skip the line. I think it was called Scare. What was it? Fright Lane, and I think it was, but it had a catchy name. It was Fright Lane and Fast Lane, but it had a Fright and Fast Fun Lane or something kind of combo deal we got. So we went in, and there's immediately when you walk in, like the scare actors just like come out at you, like, and you walk through the first part. It was funny. The way we decided to go is we decided to go around the long way because we wanted to end up at the front of the park, with the 4 final houses being kind of towards right near the exit. And so the funniest thing is they walk you through. You go through Camp Snoopy of all places is where the first haunt is, but it's a dark area to begin with. There's a lot of shade and a lot of things in there. So you go in there and there's lights in your face. So it's really like hard to navigate that first thing. But I'm going to go through all the houses one by one here. I'll give you. So the first one was the Gauntlet Scare Zone. That's what I was just describing. So you walk in and it is a gauntlet because I think there's those sliding people that come out, and there's like fog and light effects and like creepy random people that just like walk up to you. And it's funny because it's so dark that you think you're walking next to a guest, and it turns out it's one of the scare actors, because some of them are like dressed kind of very subtly, just with like makeup on. So it's like you don't realize they just turn and like, right in your face, that snort thing. But the first house we did was called Chilling Chambers. I'll give it a quick description. It says, honoring Scary Farm's inaugural maze, 10 Chilling Chambers began in 1977. It says, this unsettling attraction pays tribute to its past while horrifying today's audience. Travel through a foreboding cathedral, encountering classic maze themes, unleash 50 years of modern terror, reliving the eerie collections and diabolical characters of season past. And so this was really cool and long. It was really an elaborate haunt. I mean, a lot of weird, creepy imagery. There's this really cool like bar scene that looks like a real bar in the middle of it, but it's like some chupacabra thing going on in there. And there's weird farting elephants in it, which one of the things that stood out. But yeah, so I'm not sure where that played in there, but I will say
something in their history.
Yeah, it must be something that I didn't know about. But what I noticed, the one theme that's coming is the haunt, you don't feel like necessarily you're in like a sound stage or anything. Like there's a couple of haunts where you can kind of see like through the ceiling, but I think that might even be intentional, honestly, because they do a really good job at like the wall. Like it looks permanent. I think that comes with them being able to, with rehashing some haunts each year. I think it gives some more stability effect. So it feels like you're walking through like a cavern and you're really in a cavern. Next one. This one, Tim, would have been both of our favorites if we did this. This was called Cinema Slasher. It was like that cinema one that one we did at Horror Nights. What was it called? Slaughter Cinema.
Oh my gosh!
I think
Slaughter
right.
Cinema. Yeah, Slaughter Cinema.
That's what it was like. So basically, the thing is, embark on a journey through the midnight theater, entering horror film worlds where you must survive the deadly slasher's rage. Can you escape this movie nightmare, or you'll be trapped among decaying corpses and ruined theater? Sinister midnight theater beckons the brave into Cinema Slasher. And so this one was really cool. So it was basically, it had bunch of horror films like that other one did. But they were all slasher themed, basically.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a really cool like camp setting where you actually go through a tent, but it's like a
Oh,
thin tent, like kind of what you described when you went through that
yeah.
thin thing. So you kind of go through this really thin opening to the tent, and what's neat is each set piece is opens with you actually in a replica cinema. So there's like dead people themed to it
Oh,
and
that's
everything.
cool.
Yeah, so it's really cool, and that's where Julie, because of Julie's ability to not get scared, these actors were going all out to the point of one almost like kissed her in the face because he expected her to jump back and she didn't, and she just kept going forward, and they literally almost slammed faces together, and it happened more than once. This
Oh my
this one,
gosh.
because they were so adamant. It's like they must have like sent the word out there, like, all right, this woman, you see her come in,
We
you
got a
need to
hard
scare
case
her.
here.
Yeah, but did not work. Of course, she did not get scared. Actually, one time she might have scared herself because she almost walked into one of the walls trying to avoid me, I think, trying to get around with I was trying to audio record some stuff. Didn't come out well, though. The next one was one called Mesmer. And this is another one I think you'd like, Tim. So it says, within the canvas tent lies the secret of the most potent force in the universe, the human mind. Give in and succumb to the hypnotist Mesmer and his sinister sideshow as it pries on your hidden fears. Release your inner thoughts and descent into the world of madness. I can't read my writing here. Torture and eerie enlightenment. There you will uncover the grotesque secrets hidden as you brave through the most terrifying show ever created. And this was like a whole bunch of sideshow themed magician things, like a
Oh, I
freak
love that.
show. Yeah,
Yeah.
you and Kevin would have been like in heaven on this one. There were a lot of eyeball things going on, like things, and there was a huge, giant animatronic at the end that they used. But this one was really short. It was definitely the shortest of the haunts. And that was okay because this was one where I have a feeling they were trying to just assault you with a lot of stuff, but it was really like every sequence, while short, was really good.
And
The
10
scare
haunts. I
actors
mean,
all were great.
10 haunts is a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
that, like you said, that rivals Universal.
Yeah. Oh no, there's 10 haunts, 5 scare zones, like 4 shows, and a couple of exhibits.
Like, that's
in this
more
thing.
than Universal. That's
Oh
crazy.
yeah, no, it's more than Universal. I mean,
Yeah.
granted, it's tricky because you get that. Technically, you get a couple of houses if you want to count that Terror Tram. But in Orlando, yes, it beats the Orlando, I think, in terms of stuff. Next thing we did actually was we ended up with the Elvira exhibit, and this was in a thing where Elvira actually appeared. It was in one of their theaters there, and Elvira actually appeared on certain nights. Of course, we were there the one night in the middle. They weren't going to put her on a Saturday night because it's too crowded. I think she was there the Friday and the Sunday surrounding us.
Oh, man.
But what we did get, and I have lots of cool footage of this that I could show later on once I'm done editing everything, there was a lot of all her props. Like they had her car, her couch, like tons of photos and
That's so
collectibles
cool.
and stuff. And there was like on the screen, they were constantly showing her singing and performing through her thing. And if you read her book, she was a big performer before that, like a go-go dancer and everything before she became the Elvira that we all know. But it was neat is one of the things that the guy pointed out was such a cool touch. And he pulled us back to make sure we saw it. So because we walked by and we saw the car and everything, and it's cool. He said, "Guys, come back here. Look at this. I don't know if you caught this. Like, this shows how observant the guy that was working there was." He says, "Look on the wall there." And what it was is they had a mirror set up so you could see in the trunk clearer, like Elvira's trunk, and it was all set and laced and everything.
Oh,
But
cool.
and it's true because I didn't know. I only kind of looked in like this, but I didn't realize they had set it up so perfectly that if you looked at the mirror, you could see everything in there. So a lot of cool things. Kind of reminds me of that Dollywood museum we did that time.
Yeah.
Like that with
Yeah.
all the kind of cool stuff. Next thing we went to is the Scare Zone named after our podcast, Tim. I don't think you knew they had this, but it was called the Goring 20s
Oh, that
Scare
sounds like
Zone.
when we would have made up. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And this was like all cool old-timey dead gangsters and flapper girls coming around. And it was like the whole section was kind of themed to that. So it was really cool. I have some good footage of that too that I'm going to show. Then there was the next one we did was Room 13. And this one was cool. So it says violent murders at the Blind Tiger interrupt Prohibition era revelry and on Memory Lane. A dangerously addictive new cocktail named the Devil's Elixir seems to be at the root of the mayhem. But where did it come from? The answers may lie at the heart of the extravagant Argive hotel where many have checked in, but none have checked out. So it's like the Roach Motel, I guess. But this you would have loved too, because it was a cool old school like hotel speakeasy kind of thing. And there was like a card room where they're like people are playing cards, and it was a real elaborate bar set. Like there must have been like a couple of different bar sets in these haunts, and they looked like they could have been legitimate bars. They're so well
Oh
done.
my!
I can't even like
I love the
describe how good it
variety in
was.
all these. Like they're so like
Yeah,
different
like
from one another.
they are, and they have great like stories. Now some of them are hard to tell when you're in the haunt, but like actually now that I'm reading it back, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense now.
Yeah,
Because it's hard. Who's going to read up on the haunt and remember exactly what's the story is? And it's hard to tell a story when you're kind of getting ushered through. But they do a pretty good job on this. There was some really cool effects in here. There was in the card room. There was a set piece where the woman's face was like slammed onto the stove and it was frying, and you could see going like,
oh, that's cool.
yeah, it was really well done. There was this cool like knife throwing trick where you walk through this room and the guy is like, and he's throwing it and it's doing that sound, so it
Oh,
almost fakes you out, feels like it's going by your head, and there's someone's on the wall getting like hit
oh,
with.
that's cool.
Yeah, it was really well done. There was a cool sequence where you walk out on this balcony and it made it look like you were like really high up outside and everything. And then you like it made you go down into a boiler room. It was really an elaborate haunt. It was really cool, and it was cool theme to it. That's what I like about the not like to me. It's like what it was neat when we first went to Halloween Horror Nights. I think to get the IP haunts because it was something we
Hmm.
never experienced. But I gotta tell you, I like the more creativity of the non-IP haunts more than anything.
Yeah,
Because
I think so
it's kind
too.
of because I think you judge the IP haunts too much. Because you're like, oh, that's not right. Kind of thing,
Yeah.
or this is cool. They made a nice
Plus,
attempt, and
they're more. You can kind of already know what you're getting before you even walk into it. Whereas the IP haunts, you really have no idea. I mean, the non-IP haunts, you really have no idea, like because
hey,
of the creativity.
yeah, you just know a little bit about it. So this one was definitely one of my favorites. This one was called Origins: The Curse of Calico. Now, if you know anything about Knott's Berry Farm, which Tim, you gotta come visit this park. You would
It's
love
on
it.
my
It's gonna
list.
be
I've got to go
it.
see.
It
Yeah.
is going to be one of your favorite parts, just because the ghost town area is so huge, and Calico is like the Calico mine is that's a heavy theme in there, like the Calico mine train, the log flume, the ghost town area, it's all like to this theme. So this was in a good location on there, and so this one it says, pierce the veil of time and discover the secret of the evil fog that hangs over Not Scary Farm in Origin. So the Curse of Calico. So they kind of incorporate the entire haunt into this haunt, which is kind of new. It says, unearth sinister paranormal activity that plagues the town as Sarah Marshall, not
Not
that
forgetting
Sarah
Sarah Marshall.
Marshall.
Yeah.
Yeah, not forgetting Sarah. We don't forget her. Is put on trial for her suspected crimes of witchcraft. All will be unveiled when the Green Witch rises up and curses the townfolk, transforming all who have accused her into a wicked horde of malicious creature with an eternal quince for the living.
Mm.
So, yeah, so this one was really cool. It was so well done with like a lot of like just really elaborate set pieces and effects, and the scare actors were great in there. They really that thing with description I just told you was acted out really well throughout there, which is kind of cool. And they were fun because like I was kind of Matt from Yorkshireing it, where I would like be like, oh hey, how are you? And they'd like and then keep them in the acting and kind of answering. So, but the scare actors were so phenomenal. I almost want to email Jeff Tucker and like tell him how good his
Oh, you
crew was
should.
over there.
Totally should. Yeah.
Um, yeah, the next one was and this one I just love the name. It's called the Grimoire. Uh, it says, turn the page, enter the world of an ancient relic whose dark stories exist purely to turn your greatest nightmare into reality. Try to escape the horror of evil creatures released by the mysterious book, or have your soul eternally trapped within the pages of the next chapter. And so it's funny. This one was the one that I was like, I liked it, but I wasn't sure of the plot in there per se, because it was like it was really bizarro. But I guess now that reading that, it explains that you were kind of going through this book and you were supposedly being like transported through uh
Oh,
this
like you're
whole
in the
tale
book.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so this was in the old Mystery Lodge building, which was one of my favorite attractions at Knott's. It was one of the first I saw that used that immersion technology. And it was really cool. It was like you went there and this Native American shaman would appear all through that like immersion projection on the stage. And he'd do this
Mm.
whole thing, and the whole theater would like have all these cool effects. But for some reason, like so many times it just wouldn't open. I think it was really expensive to run, and it just closed down. But now they kind of like the haunt is kind of through that part of like the queue and the pre-show room to this. and also the exit is used for the haunt. I think some of this, possibly the backstage of the show, is used too. But what's great about that is like it used to have this like cave sequence, so the walls of this haunt are the same material that you would create like the ride with or attraction with. So it's really quality like feel to it. So so this one, it was like there was a weird like campground sequence in this one, old black and white sections in a supermarket where everything like kind of transported you back to like I guess the 50s or something. It's really bizarre. And there was this granny character that popped out, and she literally followed me for like 45 seconds through this haunt. It was hilarious. And I was just like looking around, and she kept like there, like she kept behind me though. And it was almost like, I think it was 2 to 3 rooms she followed me through. So I don't even know how she got back to the rest of the
Oh,
group, but
wow.
unless there was a quick spin around or
Maybe
something.
it
I
was
think
her break time and she was just following you to the exit.
maybe, and it was also as I was like interacting with her a little bit. So maybe she was like, he's worth like following around
Yeah.
and giving a little extra spook to her attention to. And it was a really, the whole scare actors were really good, like just in general in this haunt. And it was like a really like quality length haunt. I think it was like about 8 to 10 minutes, which is long for a haunt
Yeah.
at like these kind of things. So the final couple here, this one cracked me up on Coaster Radio. It's called Widows, because it's the one where EB says, "Oh, it's about spiders and old people." And it basically says, "Can you hear that? The spider possessed residents of the convalescent home and preparing a special place for you. Enter their web to succumb to their dark desires." So basically, think about what a creativity this haunt is. It's basically that spiders took over like basically an assisted living facility.
Oh, that's
Like,
awesome.
yeah, and it got better and better as it went in, because like basically you'd see like the old people just kind of like looking a little bit weird with spiders kind of crawling around them, not suspecting it. And as you went
Yeah.
through, you'd see them like caught in webs or like start to transform and mummify into a web.
Oh,
And
that's so
basically the
cool.
last sequence was this giant like spider, half woman kind of thing. And it was just, when I thought about it, I'm like, what a cool idea for a haunt. Like, think about it. Like, some people, I know this is weird, some people get spooked out at like hospitals
Mm-hmm.
and or like convalescent homes and old age facilities. And so like imagine throwing in spiders transforming in there. It's pretty good. Next one, of course, this is Tim's favorite one. But it does have its own thing. It's called Bloodline 842, but they just called it Bloodlines when we were on the sign. So,
Mm-hmm.
but this is Tim's favorite subtitle there. It says, "Enter the battlegrounds of a war-torn streets of steampunk neo-Victorian city of Valdonia as your clan's perilous journey takes you into the heart of raging war between your brethren, the immortal Daybreakers and the bloodthirsty," I can't even say this, Valhimfree. Basically, it's vampires. It says that the vampires have sacked the entire city, destroyed in their path. Creep through the shadow and avoid the raging vampires, actually, it says, as your clan traverses through the rubble-filled catacombs and blood-soaked walls. Armed with only your wits and courage, find the remaining Daybreakers and help them destroy the king of the I can't even say this word, Valhimfree. I don't know what that means. And the last stand is here, blood and blessings. So yeah, so this one was the most elaborate and detailed houses though, because every set was like a movie set.
Oh,
And
wow.
basically, I don't even remember some of the details. Because I was trying to type so fast towards the end. But I just remember going through this, and like there was a lot of like video effects and a lot of like characters, and this story was actually pretty easy to follow. So this one was pretty cool. The final two were, and I love this name, Eight Fingers Nine, the Boogeyman. That's the name of the title, which just sounds cool, right? That sounds like
That
a
is
cool horror movie title, right?
yeah.
It's a step inside a living fairy tale in this colonial township that's under siege by an inhuman monster that preys from the dark. As night descends, Eight Fingers Nine emerges from the shadows in search of fresh meat. His vicious bite penetrates deep, causing sleep paralysis, which holds his victim in sway as he slowly consumes their flesh. Step lively and beware of the dark, or you may be the main course as his next meal. And this is another one where I wasn't sure exactly the way the story goes, but there was a lot of cool effects and really neat set pieces as this character kept appearing and stuff. And there was a lot of great scare actors in this one too. The final one we did, was called Waxworks. And so this is mysterious lights and strange noises have begun to emanate from the eerie abandoned wax museum. The once prominent plastic surgeon, Dr. Augustus Scratch, has been seen tinkering at night and is now ready to show off his beautiful yet terrifying lifelike masterpieces of hot molten wax and bloody flesh. It's rumored The blood curdling screams can be heard echoing through the halls of waxworks as victims are horrifyingly submerged into a scorching hot cauldron of bubbling wax. Take a closer look at this gruesome work of art and try to escape his deadly grip or become the newest masterpiece to add to his collection. And this one kind of reminded me, it was basically a lot of grotesque imagery and weird things going on. It's basically a mad scientist meets a wax sculpture. Kind of reminds me of, what was that movie with that Joe Bob showed with Dick Miller, where he was like we can make people out of clay. What was that
Oh,
movie?
I can't think of it now, but I know what you're
It
talking
kind of
about.
reminded me of that, where he was like, he started as an artist and then he just found a way
Yeah,
to do all this kind of stuff. So that was kind of cool. So, and it was neat about, what I have to say, what I liked about Scary Farm is the haunts were not like 40-minute walks off the theme park path. In fact,
right.
this one was basically right at the edge of an area where it usually stops you, and you go past, and they actually have the 4 haunts in like this like quad, and you can kind of pick all the last 4 we went to. You pick all 4, um, and you just go through them there. And there's also an extra bar back there and everything. So there's a lot of cool stuff. Um, so terms of like scare zones, really quickly, the Ghost Town one is really cool because that's the original. That's how this haunt started. It was just basically, it was like the Ghost Town haunts where you go through. So you can imagine it was like half human and animal monsters and cowboys and crazy things walking around, which was really cool. Then there was Carnival, which is Knott's Boardwalk area, which is taken over by the crazy clowns. I mean,
I
that's
think
pretty
everybody's got
standard.
a Carnival, and it's the same
E-
titled name too.
Exactly. And there was an interaction which I managed to catch on video of this funny guy, which I swear to God, like, I don't know what's with me and people dressed as clowns, but they always interact with me and tell me weird stories and try and do things. But I'm gonna save that for the video. I'm gonna send you the clip because it's bizarro, and so I'll save that. And then there was Forsaken Lake. Um, this one was kind of neat because it was kind of like surrounding. It was like all this green fog, and it surrounded the lake. That was like basically under the Silver Bullet roller coaster. So when we kind of walked around, you saw a lot of like really like creepy gothic creatures walking around and everything. It was kind of neat. Um, so then there was also this, I didn't get to some of these shows even. That's how busy it was. There was a conjurer show, which was like some kind of illusionist guy, and there was a carnival that it's called Magnifique Carnaval de Grotesque, and it was basically like death-defying feats, like a circus act, which I kind of saw
Okay.
as we were walking by. So
Yeah.
it was kind of cool, creepy. There was a big outdoor stage, kind of neat stuff going on. So you got to see that as you walk by. It was kind of cool. Then this one you'll like, the Hanging, the Errors tour, a little play on Taylor Swift there. And this was basically kind of like in the ghost town with like basically a guy was like it was like a hanging guy. I guess they're trying to hang. It's like a Wild West stunt show, but they were going to hang this guy, and
Oh,
they have a
okay. Yeah.
haunted theme with the guy in it. But we didn't get to see that either. I just saw the thing for it. Uh, then there was this. I was bummed. I forgot to go see this, but it was called Into the Fog. It was a collection of original art. Where they used where they got all the inspiration from Not Scary Farm. I think I was like where we were. I didn't know where it was at the time because there was one section where it gets really confusing, especially in the dark and the crowds, that Julie and I must have walked in a circle 4 times. And I know that park really well. It was just, I think we got them like trying to get online for something, we got like rerouted and we ended up going back the way we came. It was weird. And that was also tired and hungry at that point. And that gets me to my little quick soapbox thing. So there was one food thing we wanted to try. It was like these like taquito type of things on top of fries. And we go to this line. It's like the shortest line, but it's still long. And we can't figure out. I'm like, I see the items sitting there. What is taking so long? And Julie spots, she goes, oh my God, I think people are ordering stuff from the regular menu, which was corn dogs and chicken fingers. And
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, my one tip, if you're gonna do that, don't put it at a featured food place. Because literally when we got up and we ordered our food, it was like 4 seconds they handed it to us. Meanwhile, and I see this woman like struggling in the back with this corn dog. I threw at a guy that looked like she was an escaped scare actor from that wax museum place. She's holding up a corn dog, and then like all the corn like falling all over the place. And I'm like, this one woman waited, I think, like 40 minutes for a corn dog front,
Oh,
and it was a
God.
big group in front of. So that's the one thing I will say don't do. There was this like cool thing. I don't know if I think I sent the picture of that cool blinky cup thing where it's like the cup is activated, I think, by the cold temperatures as you pour in the thing. So I got this weird apple kind of, I guess it's similar to, Julie said when she sipped it, it kind of like the White Claw type of thing, but it was like
Okay.
an apple, like almost like toxic waste green, like, and it glowed in the cup, so it looked really kind of cool. And we had we tried some beers and stuff too. We also I did that pickle shot of whiskey, where it's like basically they give you whiskey and they put it in a poured out pickle, and you basically shoot it.
I would totally do that. I like
Oh, I did
pickles.
it. It was actually pretty
Yeah.
good and then you eat the pickle at the end. Julie got me on video, I think, drinking the pickle, and I have pictures of it, so I'll share that as well. And then let's see. Oh, then one cool thing is well, we ended the night with this. So I'll do the thing. We did only do 2 rides. It's funny. We got the whole fright lane fair. I thought we'd do a little more rides, but really, it's like at that point I had done all the rides mostly throughout the day, and I really didn't want to waste the cool haunt time going on rides that I had,
Yeah.
that I had been on. But I did want to always do I wanted to do Accelerator at night because they never did that at night, and that was amazing. That thing like felt like it was 5 times as fast as it normally is. That's one of those, like, it's like a mini version of King Dakar where you just kind of launch off really fast. One of the earlier things, and it was closed for a long time, and they finally reopened it. And then I wanted to do a Ghost Rider at night, which is their big wooden roller coaster. And that ride is always one of my favorites normally. At night, at 1 in the morning, essentially, we're on this thing of it running since 9 a.m. So you know how wooden roller coasters, when they heat up, how much they add to the experience. So, and it was pitch black. I felt like I literally was getting thrown all over the place. I felt like I was a rare point. I said, I may actually be thrown out of this ride. It was going so fast. It was so fun. And it was so like, I was like, this is the best ride I've ever had on this ride. And I've gone on it a bunch of times in the past. And I'm just like, and I rode it night before, but not that late into the night. And not when they shut the lights off in the back area of it. And it's just, oh my God, that ride is just, I could ride that thing. I could have rode it all night. Except it did. And it's funny because it helped give me the adrenaline I needed, because at that point it was 1 in the morning. We were tired. And I'm like, we still have 4 more houses to do, but we're
Oh
going
my
to do it.
gosh.
So I'm
Yeah.
like, we can do it really fast. And so like, I'm like, but we need something to do it. So by the time we got on the ride, it was right about 1 a.m. And this thing, I got off the ride, like my back wasn't hurting anymore. My legs were moving faster, like everything. It was like I was woken up. And the funny thing is, some place, we assume it was someone either online or underneath, or someone snuck off to do it. But like every time we went over a certain, because the ride kind of circles in and out of itself at parts. When we went over a couple of parts, the strongest smell of weed. And I'm like, is someone smoking on this ride? Even like, I'm like, it's impossible. Like, this thing is so crazy. If someone even tried to put anything out of there, it'd be flying out of their hands. So we assumed it was just every time we went over this one part, you could get the whiff of the weed. So it's kind of funny. And then finally we ended the night with they had the Legacy store, which is kind of like that really cool, like it's like basically like a merchandise store, but like it has the history of all of Knott's. Like it's some older merchandise
Yeah.
from and stuff, had old themes to old house specific merch. I only bought one shirt this time, but it was a really cool event shirt. I have to send a picture of it because it had the grimoire, the witch on the back, and it had a I was going to say grimoire, I meant green witch on the back, and then it had all the houses like represented. It was really cool shirt. But then that was it, and we got back, so we pretty much stayed just till that closed, and it was good because we were staying at the hotel, and so we literally just had to walk like, maybe like a 3-4 minute walk out of the park to back to the hotel.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, I like I told Julie, I'm like, I don't know how. Like, I think I'm gonna have to do Horror Nights and this every year. Julie gave the edge to Horror Nights. In terms of the two, I'm still having trouble deciding. It's like there's elements to both where I'm like, well, this was better there, this was better there. So I don't know yet. I think I love them both, and I feel like I'm gonna have to make them part of my repertoire every year. And it's like it's not
but
cheap.
You got
but,
2 like really good events though.
Right.
I mean, how awesome is that?
And I can drive to them. It's like I drive over there. It's like it's like Disney. I mean, Knott's is about a 6-hour drive. Universal about 5.5. So, and like especially because if we keep, we go, it was good because we went to Knott's during the day. And then last year we made that mistake where we went to Knott's during the day and we didn't stay for Scary Farm at night. And I was kind of kicking myself. I was like, hey, didn't we just stay? Why didn't we just stay? And this time we decided, okay, we're going to, this time we're going to do it. We planned it right. I mean, they're definitely not cheap haunts. They're definitely more
Yeah.
expensive than your average haunts, but they are worth that extra. I think one year you got to come out and we'll hit them all.
Yeah, I mean, if I do a West Coast trip, I've got to come out around Halloween and do, like, I feel like I have to. Like, that's the
I
time of
think
year
so. Yeah.
I need to go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
for
No,
sure.
and we can go down. We'll maybe make a longer thing and go to Howl-O-Scream and SeaWorld.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a couple
totally.
hours further. But I'm going to try and add that to the repertoire. And last year I told you, I said, let's hit all 4 of them. We're going to hit all 4. Maybe
if
one
I
week.
come, we're hitting off 4.
Tim and
We're doing it.
Olivia will come out. We'll hit
Yeah.
all 4 big ones there.
Yeah, that would be so cool.
Yeah. So sorry, that was a little longer than I expected, but I figured I wanted to do it justice.
Yeah, no, for Halloween. I mean, for our Halloween episode, why not? That's our last chance to do the haunts this year.
Yeah, and we didn't give an episode, and we still have one more haunt to review next week. And plus, we didn't give an episode this last week,
you
so we need to give something.
Yeah. So let's talk about Salem's Lot. This obviously, hopefully most of you guys have already seen this because it came out direct to streaming. It was directed by Gary Dauberman, starring Lewis Pullman as Ben Mears, Mackenzie Lee, Jordan Preston Carter as Mark Petrie, Alfred Woodard as Dr. Cody, Bill Camp as Matt Burke, John Benjamin Hickey as Father Callahan, Nicholas Crevetti as Danny Glick, Spencer Treat Clark as Mike Ryerson, Hailu Asbeck as R.T. Straker, and Alexander Ward as Kurt Barlow. And Arthur returns to his hometown of Jerusalem's Lot in search of inspiration for his next book, only to discover that the townspeople are being attacked by a bloodthirsty vampire. Of course, this is based on the Stephen King novel of the same name, a classic, one of his early novels, and of course was turned into a classic miniseries that Brian and I both love. And this was kind of a highly anticipated remake because of, there's been a lot of success recently remaking Stephen King movies, especially with, I think, it being probably the prime example of a fantastic remake.
Although Pet Sematary, I kind of like that one still.
I did like the Pet Sematary, which is very odd because I really like the original Pet Sematary. Is one of my favorite Stephen King adaptations for me to even like the remake, but I thought they did enough different that it was at least interesting.
Plus it had Lithgow and he smelled like tobacco.
Yeah. But I mean, I think everybody was interested in this because there's been like this renewed interest in Stephen King properties lately. And this is a big one to remake. This is not one of his lesser known novels. This is a stone cold classic.
And the first one I've ever read, actually, the first
really?
novel I read. Yes, because I loved the miniseries so much. My mom bought me the book down. I remember she bought me the paperback version of this book. Like down at it was literally on one of those rotating racks at the little convenience store down the street. I still remember getting that. Yeah.
So I was definitely looking forward to this. Now this one had some production issues, right? Didn't it get shelved for like a year or something?
And and saying that, like, I expected this to be like I don't know why. Like I like after seeing it, I'm wondering what the problem was that held it up. Like, what was it? Like, did they reshoot a bunch of stuff and put it in? Because overall, I didn't think it was worthy of all the drama of, this will never be released now, or why are we delaying it? Like, what happened that they kept forcing it back? I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know so if you guys know more of the backstory, I didn't bother to research the backstory
I didn't either.
On all this, on what the problem was. But anyway, there was talks of it going to theaters, and it didn't go to theaters, and it finally comes out direct to streaming, and I don't know, there's a whole thing. But it did finally come out, and it's interesting with this one because, when they remade it was remaking a miniseries, but you knew they were doing it in 2 parts, so you knew it was essentially going to be a 4-hour movie. Whereas in this, I was very curious because they're taking a 4-hour miniseries and cutting it down to 2 hours.
Remember, they did make a movie version of the miniseries where they cut a lot out and made it into like a more, I think, right? And then they put it in the theaters, I believe. Maybe not in this country, but I believe they did it elsewhere. It's kind of funny. They did it with Twin Peaks, the pilot Twin Peaks they made into a movie over in Europe. But I remember they did something with this where they made, because I remember one time before, like, the Blu-ray had the miniseries out and all that, they released it on I think VHS, and I got all excited and I bought it, and I'm like, the hell is this? Why is it so short? And there were scenes cut out that I remember, and it was because there was I think a movie version of it where they cut it down to a nice, like, I think it was like a little under 2 hour film. And the miniseries, while looking back and I see this one, there was a lot of fluff probably in the original miniseries and some
Yeah,
subplots that may have, like, remember, I don't remember the book. I haven't read the book in forever, and I want to
me
actually,
too.
it's one I want to reread now after seeing this to see how well they did it. Um, but in the book, I know, like, even the miniseries took some liberties, especially with, I read in one of the trivia about the way Barlow was, he was described, and I don't remember that being different, but remember, I was a kid when I watched this, and I was a kid when I read it, so a lot of stuff was probably, like, over my head a little bit in terms of that kind of details of stuff, um, but yeah, so, I mean, like, I think this one was definitely, although this one is funny, I was gonna say, this one feels almost like a little bit, like, rushed and packed in, like, was the miniseries kind of overall, like, even though there was some fluff in it, kind of, and I'd love to do a back-to-back watch of the 2, and I have them,
Yeah,
I
that
have
was my
the
problem. I did not watch the miniseries before I watched this one, but I agree. I
yeah,
think this is. I think yes. If I was looking at it very critically, I think the miniseries probably is a little slow in places because it was stretched out. It was padded out to be a
yeah,
full miniseries, and I get that. And I've heard of people that went back and rewatched this said, okay, it is a little sluggish,
yeah.
and I believe them. I mean, I haven't watched it in so long that it's yeah. I don't have any reason to doubt you. On the other hand, I noticed where it was rushed in this movie. Like,
Yeah.
and I pointed it out even when I watched it and texted the guys
Yeah,
that,
there was something you said, and I'm like, "Oh my god, Tim was exactly right on this." Like,
yeah, it
and I
was,
know what you're gonna say, but I'll let you say
yeah. So, and, again, I'm not going to dance around, and this isn't really a spoiler, but I'm not
no,
going
I
to
mean,
dance around spoilers
everyone
because,
knows what this movie's
yeah,
about. Yeah.
everybody knows that it's a remake. So, but I found it very, very odd in the movie that it's not completely surprising to some of the characters that it's a vampire. Like, usually when you watch a vampire
Exactly, yeah.
movie, when you
Yeah.
watch a vampire movie and you go, and some crazy guy comes up and goes, "That's because he's a vampire. We have to go stick him in the heart." Usually there's like some pushback to that, like,
Yeah.
vampires, are you crazy? Vampires aren't real. There's something in
Yeah.
there that says it. Whereas in this movie, it seemed like they jumped from there's no such thing as vampires to, oh, vampires are totally real, like within a space of like a second. It's like there was
Yeah, like,
no,
why were they so on board so
the,
fast with, like,
there's,
a town that obviously never had that problem before because literally the vampire had just moved in?
yeah, and I could understand it if this was a town like, I will give you an example. If this was Lost Boys and the town was known for having vampires,
Yeah.
because the Frog Brothers knew that there were vampires in the town, that okay, I could see how they accept it because they already know there's vampires there.
Yeah.
There's nothing about this movie where again, I haven't read the book in years, so
Yeah.
if there's like king nuts out there that are like just read the novel and
I
are
think
going,
I'm
yeah,
gonna
but
go
you
actually
forgot.
order a copy of this book, like, almost
Yeah, I
immediately
hope they're
when
not
we're
like back
done.
there going, oh, but you forgot about this and this and that.
Yeah, and
Possibly I did,
we
but
might have, yes.
in the concept of the movie, I don't like it was so jarring to me. And there's even a section later on in the movie where he says something like, "Well, they'll never believe that these are vampires." And I'm like, "Why wouldn't they believe it? You just believed it within 30
I know.
seconds."
And even the people that didn't believe it first, they took, like, the most little bit
Y-
convincing. They're like, it's like that, like, I feel like it's that, like, that Drake meme, or that, like, girl
Yeah, yeah,
that meme, like,
yeah.
vampires now. Are you sure?
Hey,
Maybe, you're
baby.
right. It's like the doc, like, Alfred Woodard's character, like, she's like, "Oh, it's not a vampire." And then all of a sudden like, she, like, is on board and, like, shows up and, like, she's now all, like, she's like Alfred the vampire hunter. I'm like,
Yeah, it felt like there
and
was
now
a
granted, I don't think I'm not gonna critique it as not so much a negative. It was almost like it was odd.
it
Is
was
the
odd.
best is
It felt like there was a 3 hour movie, and they said, "No, we got to get this down to 2 hours." And
well,
somebody said,
maybe
"Okay."
that's, and there
And
you
and
go. Maybe
somebody's
that's what
yeah,
it was.
and somebody said, "Okay, well, cut out all the scenes where people were skeptical that there's vampires."
They're like, they put it through the AI filter. Take out
Yeah,
skepticism.
skepticism, and it's
Now you
like
got
shot 45
hour and
minutes off of
45
the movie.
minutes. We're good. Yeah, no, I wonder. You know what? Don't. I mean, I know that sounds funny, but we're not that far from that's what people are going to start doing. They're going to start
Right.
running movies through AI filters. Take out all this. Let's see what we get, and then throw it out there quick.
Yeah,
And that's going to be a very sad day for the film industry. But
so
but yeah, I mean, now granted, like, there were some subtle changes, like, little bit of names that changed in this. I want to say I do love the fact I like that, like, it was Lance Kerwin played Mark in the miniseries. I love the kid that played this in it because
Mhm.
he like got purpose. Like I loved like when he's being bullied and he fights back, and it kind of like it kind of like set up his character. You're like, okay, this kid's gonna save people. Like, and I
Mhm.
like the way they did that. I thought that was a nice touch. Now I remember Lance Kerwin's character just being kind of like all like just into monsters, and that was his like depth of character, But I
Yeah.
feel like, and not I thought he was great in it too. But this one I thought like the portrayal of Mark in this, it was, like the young sidekick that kind of, and then I remember how the other one ended. They kind of go off to be vampire hunters kind of thing. I kind of liked the way like they did his character. I thought that was really good. They set him up nicely. He was like that typical kid with like, oh no, this is a vampire. Look, I found it in my comic book kind of thing. But you could tell he already had an instinct to fight in there. So it seemed like it made more sense. Like it seemed like he was gonna
Mhm.
be in there. And I thought that was pretty good. I loved Mackenzie Lee is my new crush. I thought she was great in that.
Yeah.
And she
There
was
was good
different,
chemistry. I thought there was good chemistry between the leads. Like it felt
Yeah,
realistic.
Lewis Pullman was great.
Yeah.
I thought he was a great Ben Mears.
Yeah.
David
I did.
Soul, I mean, is going to kind of always, strictly he's going to be like, if I think Ben Mears, I'm going to think of David Soul kind of thing. But Lewis Pullman, like, pretty much is like as close as you can get. He kind of captured that, like, I don't know, the feel of that way. I always
Yeah.
envisioned that character being, kind of
Yeah. I
like this
thought they did.
kind of
I mean,
cool dude,
I had
you
no
know.
problem with the cast. I thought it was cast
Yeah.
well. I thought the chemistry
No,
was good.
and Bill Camp, who, played, like the coach and he's with the Red Sox. He was great in it too. Like, and I
Yeah.
think that he was, I forgot who played him in the original right now. It's escaping me, and I thought like it was interesting. Like, so, Jeffrey Lewis, who played Mike Ryerson in the original, with the red eye, that whole sequence where I like the way they switched that sequence up a little bit. They kind of made him more of like a kind of a dynamic vampire a little bit in this than it was. And I think they could do that more now in modern, because they have a lot more kind of like, I feel like they tried to get the vampires like a mix of the old nostalgic vampires with a little bit of the new, like,
Well,
quote
they
unquote
showed.
sexy vampires like from True
Yeah.
Blood. They kind of mixed the two together in
But
this,
I
which was
thought they
kind of
did
neat.
I liked that they respected the miniseries. Like
Right.
they didn't shit on the miniseries and try to make it like so different. They like, especially like the window scene. They know that's
Which
an
I will say
iconic scene.
though was not a proper window. It should have been
Yeah.
opening windows. But
Yeah.
I know they wanted to make their own thing. At least they got it in there. It wasn't
Yeah.
not even remotely as scary
Not
as
as
the
scary,
original.
but at least they
Yeah,
paid homage to that famous
yeah.
scene. They didn't try to like cut it out completely or do something
Oh,
weird.
I would, I would have been rioting
Yeah.
there. I would have been
But
all, I would that.
I
I
thought they
would have,
did a decent job of like at least showing they were aware and respected the miniseries without like completely, doing something so different that it ruined it. They did, like, you feel like you felt as a fan like they didn't respect it. I felt like they respected the miniseries, but they were just trying to add like some modern. I mean, they added like some modern scares to the movie that probably weren't there in the original one,
yeah.
and I
But
and I could kind of get that.
did you? I felt a little bit like the Straker character wasn't as prevalent. I know maybe I don't know. I like misremember, but I remember like him being much more of a factor in the miniseries as he was in this. Like he
I
kind of
think
like,
I think that's
and
a
he was a good
problem.
actor. It just I feel
Yeah,
like maybe in the miniseries they could develop it. That was the
I
advantage,
I think
and
that's
that's
what it
why they
was.
went that route.
Yeah, I
I'd
think
love
they
to
were
see the
rushed,
Blu-ray release of this, and if they have like deleted scenes, see what else was in
or like
there.
some director's cut, because
Yeah,
here's my thoughts on this movie, and I thought this from the very beginning because I was on, it'd be on Twitter or on Facebook or whatever, and people were talking about the movie when it first came out, and you had one side that were like, "Oh, this is awesome, this is cool, it's a great movie. Like, why was this not released in theaters? This is fantastic." And then on the other side, you had people that were kind of downing it, like, "Yeah, it's kind of disappointing. It wasn't the one I thought. It was, kind of this, and that." And I swear, this is one of those movies that I could argue either side of that. And I would like,
yeah,
one person could come up to me and tell me this was fantastic. This was a great remake. And I go, yep, I agree. And another person could come up to me and say, this is far inferior to the original. I don't know why they, and I would go, you know what? I kind of see your point there too. I'm so square in the middle on this movie.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's like they call it divisive because a lot of people liked it and a lot of people hated it. And I'm like right on the line. Like I can understand literally both sides of the argument. Now, from an entertainment standpoint, I enjoyed it. I had no problems with it. I thought it was
100%.
thought it was entertaining. I thought the some of the cooler scenes that they did with the vampires and stuff was really cool. Like the horror they did, compared to the original was neat. But I saw a lot of flaws in it too, and the biggest flaw probably being it was rushed. It felt rushed.
Yeah.
I don't know how you get around that. I think if you had never seen the miniseries, maybe you're a younger person, had never seen the miniseries, and you watch this, and this was your first exposure to the story, I could see how you would love this. Like, it's a cool vampire movie. Absolutely cool vampire movie.
Especially with what as out there as vampire movies. This one, like, if that original mirror series was not there for comparison, and you just got this one, and I think there was another movie, like a remake of it somewhere in the 2000s, right? Early 2000s, I think. Whatever. But if let's just say this was the only version of it, and you'd only compare it to the book, now you'd have a whole nother set of problems, obviously. But just if you're looking at a movie sake, and you got this, I think arguably it'd be like maybe like 85-15 ratio of like to versus not like, because it was a quality movie. It was great performances. There were no like stupid looking effects really in it. It moved at a good pace. So for that reason,
really cool ending. I love the like third act stuff was.
Oh
cool.
yeah, it had to. I like the feel of the town was represented really well. They had the little Stephen King like Easter egg in there. I guess you could see Christine in the beginning, kind of thing. I thought, I thought the characters were really well done in it. I mean, it was a great cast they got. I think I like the fact that there's a drive-in set. Anytime a drive-in is in a movie sequence, I like that. And and there was the great like sequence at the end. And this is a big spoiler, but when he goes and he drives through and he realizes he's got to like that the screen is what's blocking the sunlight, like, and he thinks to drive through. I'm like, it's cool. I mean, that's kind of like it's kind of really fun, like ending to that, and it's just like, and there's a lot of, and it's so funny because a lot of people, I wonder if they're going to complain, like about how like Barlow was represented, because it's funny for this head vampire, but he was like that in originally, and he's not in it that much because it's really not he's like the kind of the driving force of it, but really it's about how the town is taking over. So he should always kind of take like a side seat at some level, even though he's at the center of it all. But I just love the overall I was like, I mean, I was looking forward to this a lot, so there was so much anticipation potential for this, especially because of the way the original one affected me, the way the original one got me into horror so much, the way how it like still to this day freaks me out at that sequence. And so like this movie had a lot of hurdles to impress me, and the fact that it did so easily is a testament. Not that I'm like this I should be the bar of this movie review, but I mean, for myself, I'm just talking for myself. The fact that I liked it as much as I did, with all the history I have to the original miniseries,
it counts for something.
It's got to say something. I mean, it overall is a really good, solid movie.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not going to argue either way. I'm dead on the middle. I enjoyed it as a vampire film. Do I still prefer the original miniseries as the adaptation? Yes, I do. Yeah. I thought this one was rushed, and I think it had problems being rushed.
Yeah.
But it doesn't keep it from being an entertaining vampire movie. It doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't. Now, I'm wondering if they would have done Salem's Lot if they split the movie and did 1 and 2. How that would have.
Who knows? I mean, because I can point to examples of bad remakes that they've done recently. Firestarter remake was terrible.
I still didn't see that.
It was terrible. I hated it. And that's an example to me of a Stephen King remake where this could have gone that wrong. It could have. I thought the Firestarter remake. Now, granted, the original Firestarter, if I'm being dead honest, is not a great movie. But I
think it's remembered better than it actually is.
Yeah, but
still,
but the remake, man, I just thought it was god awful. And this could have gone that route, but this is not. This one's solid. It's not It's not the remake I was hoping for in terms of like being like It level remake,
Yeah.
but it was, it was okay. It was decent. I would put it maybe slightly below Pet Cemetery remake. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe,
Well,
maybe on
yeah,
the
I'm
level.
I'm
I don't
sure
know.
where I stand yet on that, where I'm gonna rank it as a remake. But I will say this though, I think it had to be the two parts that it did. It had to be that big a scale because with first of all the size of the book, and the second of all,
Yeah.
it being a mini series that like it's makes sense to split it in like there's two major kind of sequence things in it. It kind of makes sense
I think what we're
that they
saying
had to
is
do it.
ideally Salem's Lot should be a 3-hour movie.
Yeah, I could see
The
that.
miniseries was too long and the movie was too short.
Yeah.
It probably needs to be 3 hours and be done with it.
I might dig around when I get a chance over the weekend or something. I want to dig around to see what was really caused the delay if they ever released it. Is there a lot of stuff cut out?
Yeah, there's got to be something. I feel like
It's got to be
something
yeah,
had to have been cut out because it just felt rushed. But
yeah,
yeah, I don't know. It's a very, that's why I kind of wanted to talk about it as our main feature. I was excited to talk about it because
yeah.
it's really a fascinating movie to talk about because I could see so many. It's enjoyable but has flaws, kind of thing.
Yeah,
And those are always the most
exactly.
interesting to
Yeah,
talk about. Yeah.
exactly.
So what was our beer pairing, Brian?
So I found it was funny. There actually was in North Carolina, but it was retired in 2017, so I could not use it. But there was a Salem's Lot beer that someone made,
Oh, that's
but
cool.
it's no longer around, so I couldn't use it. It was a small little brewery there, but so I found one called Vampire Juice Pale Ale at a Kingdom Brewing in Newport, Vermont. And if you've been to Vermont, I think I've told you my tales of Vermont. That is like the beer capital of the world. It's amazing there. Uh, so it's very light beer though. It's 5%, but it's a crisp ale taste finished with the sweet tart tang of infused blood orange, strawberry, pineapple, and grapefruit. So that sounds
I
pretty good.
just
But
threw
I like the
everything in
blood
there.
orange. Blood
I
orange
love
makes it.
blood orange anything. I will.
Yeah,
I will
I'm with you
typically.
on that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So our fan topic food was a really good one. It says, while many of Stephen King's stories have been made into film and TV series, and some remade multiple times, what is one that you think should be updated with a remake, and one that should never have a remake? And I had a really easy answer for
Yeah, I
this
knew
one.
you were gonna. I knew right when I made this. I said, I know what Tim's one that should be remade is going
Yeah,
to be because he's been very vocal about it, especially if
yeah.
you listen to the show.
So mine, hands down, The Dark Tower. That movie should have never existed. It was complete foolishness to try to condense the Dark Tower series into a single 2-hour movie. I mean, on third grader, if they knew what Stephen King was, could have told you that was a bad idea. And when this was first announced, when the Dark Tower movie was first announced, and they cast Idris Elba, and I knew I was going to get flack for this because I argued with people on forums about that casting. And I knew you're going to have the people come out and say, "Well, you're a racist because you didn't like Idris." Yeah, I
Yeah.
knew that you're going to get that every
First of
time.
all, anyone knows you love Idris Elba. Everyone loves
I
Idris Elba.
adore Idris Elba.
He's one
I
of the best
love it.
actors. Yeah, he's one of the best actors out there today.
And that's what I was telling people. I'm like, it has nothing to do with the color of his skin because I am a huge Idris Elba fan. In fact, I wanted him to play James Bond. Like
Yeah.
I was number one on that train to have him play James Bond. But for me, it was a miscast, not because he's not a great actor, because like I said, he's one of my favorite actors, but because in the books of the Dark Tower, number one, you've got 7, 8 books in this series that all have the same central character. And Stephen King goes out of his way to describe Roland's appearance in these books. I mean, he's always likened to Clint Eastwood, and he
Yeah.
has this cowboy rugged thing. And it's hammered on throughout the book so much that we've had literally decades of this character in our mind, what he looks like. And then to intentionally recast that as somebody that doesn't match that at all, I think is a disservice to the fans that have this. I mean, I have no problem casting a African-American Little Mermaid or an African-American James Bond or any of that. But when you have a property that the character has been described for literally 30 years, and then you're going to switch it, it doesn't matter if he was African-American. If they had cast him as a like a big freckled 7-foot tall, freckled, red-haired, curly-haired dude, I would have had the same reaction. I was like, that's not what
Yeah.
Roland looks like in the books.
Yeah.
And so that's the point I was trying to make. I was like, it has nothing to do with race. It has everything to do with certain properties. Yes, it's fine to cast whatever you want to cast it, because it doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
in this,
When a character is described into such detail in a certain way,
for so many
you gotta
years,
stick.
over so many
Yeah.
books, and people had the same reaction when Tom Cruise was cast as Jack Reacher in
Mm.
that movie, because Jack Reacher in the novels was like this, like, really buff, physically buff, tall dude, and here's Tom Cruise, this little short, skinny guy, and people had a problem with that casting too, and nobody said that was racist or anything. It's just because it was a miscast, and
And
then they ended up recasting Jack Reacher as a guy that looked more like the book.
Yeah. Well, and
But
we just had this discussion in our chat about Carrie and its myriad of remakes that, like, in the book, she's this flubby, like,
schlubby, overweight,
and
girl,
in it, like, I mean, you got Sissy Spacek, who, was attractive. You got, what was this? Grace
Chloe Grace
Moretz.
Moretz, yeah.
You have, what's it? Oh my God, I'm forgetting her name. Angela right? Bettis was another
Yeah,
Carrie. They're all like super kind of thin. And I'm like, it's like, I mean, I guess maybe in that point it doesn't matter as much of a detail, but you're trying to make Carrie look like her whole thing was that she was kind of like this homely person, but but I mean, that could be said in so many movies. But again, it's like when you have when the author goes out of their way to describe someone a certain way, and it's a beloved property, and people have been reading and rereading and rereading, it's like, imagine me Harry Potter, right? And they put him in as like a 400-pound, like
I know, that's what I'm saying. I'm like,
blonde kid. I'm
it's
like,
not.
that's not what he was described in the book.
Yeah, it's nothing about race or gender, anything. It's about,
Yeah.
if you're gonna make a book if you're gonna make a movie based on a property, and you're gonna have any faithfulness at all, don't you think? I mean, because when you read a book, it's like playing a movie in your mind. Should it be at least somewhat close to what readers have grown to
Yeah.
expect? I don't know. That's just me, but that's the least of this movie's problems, because actually Idris Elba's really good as Roland. I mean, I will
Yeah.
have to admit, he's really good as Roland, but
Didn't you
the
say it's like the
movies,
plot's not even the same?
no, it's like, it's, I don't even know what it was. I don't even know how to describe how awful this movie is. Like, I've read every Dark Tower book, some of them repeatedly, and I couldn't tell you what the hell was going on in this movie. Like, it was that bad.
Oh my God.
So the Dark Tower should be remade. I believe it is being remade. I think they're going to do like a mini series or a
That's
limited
good.
series. I've heard rumors for years. I think it actually is happening. So that one, number one, hands down, should be remade. The one I think should never be remade, and it has already been remade.
Right now. And a lot of people say that one's more faithful to the book too.
It is.
The remake.
It's totally. And this
Yeah.
one's weird, and this one's going to be weird for you, because mine is The Shining, and the reason why I don't think The Shining should be remade, on paper, it's the perfect candidate for being remade, because Stephen King hated it. And I'm talking about the original The Shining. He hated he hated Kubrick's adaptation. It was not faithful to the book. It's Jack Nicholson was pretty much horribly miscast, because in the book, Jack Torrance is like a really nice, like, decent guy that just slowly goes crazy over the course of the winter at the Overlook, whereas Jack Nicholson is crazy from the get-go. I mean, he
Yeah.
seems like a nut job from the very start. So that doesn't quite work in the film. So on paper, this should be a perfect candidate to be remade. But I think the problem is Kubrick's arguably masterpiece is so iconic, and is such and in my mind, one of the best horror movies ever made, certainly in my top 5.
Oh yeah. And if you look at it as just a movie, it's and forget that there was a book based off it.
Yeah.
It's like you can't.
I don't know how you remake it without, I mean, even in Doctor Sleep, which is a sequel, and when they were showing the flashback stuff, they still mimicked Kubrick's version.
Yeah.
Because it's so iconic and it's already in people's minds. I don't know how you remake that, and I don't think you should remake it. Don't remake it. I know Stephen King doesn't like it, but to be honest, Stephen King he gave his blessing to the Dark Tower remake. So this may be sacrilege to Stephen King fans, and I'm I'm a number one
Yes.
Stephen King fan. I will be the first to tell you, I don't trust anything he says in regards to his adaptations and what he thinks of them. I honestly don't, because I think he is always going to say his adaptations are good.
Yeah.
Or he's going to give it, if he's involved in it in any way, he's going to say, oh yeah, he said he thought Salem's Lot was great. He thought Dark Tower was great. He thinks Under the Dome was great. He thought every adaptation he's ever been
Oh my
involved
God.
with is great.
Really? You liked all those?
Yeah. I mean, cause he's involved in them, or he's given his blessing to them. Of course he's not going to say they're crap if after he's been involved in giving his blessing to remake them.
True.
I mean, this is the same guy that sells his rights to his, and God bless him for doing it because it's cool, but he sells the rights to his story so kids like in colleges can do plays of his works for like $1. He sells the rights for $1 because, but I guess what I'm trying to say is he's not a person that I think really cares a whole lot about the artistic integrity of adaptations of his work. I think he's comfortable with the books standing on their own and doesn't necessarily, he's not one of those that's going to flip out if an adaptation sucks, because obviously he hasn't in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's just like whatever. So I don't trust his judgment on his own adaptations. I just don't.
Mhm.
So if he doesn't like The Shining, I don't care. I still don't think it should be made.
Yeah.
because I think it's one of the best horror movies ever made. So that's my two answers, a long roundabout way, but I'm very passionate about my Stephen King stuff. So forgive me for the little bit of a soapbox there.
So the first one I'll say, the one I think should be remade, and hear me out on this one, because the movie that it was based on was fun. It was okay, but I think I would redo Cycle of the Werewolf. Because Silver Bullet was a fun little 80s
I
kind of horror movie.
almost listed that one. I came very close.
But the way and here's why. I think because the way that book was structured, I think that would make an incredible, like 6-7 part miniseries or something. Because remember each chapter was like the werewolf attacking. Each chapter was a werewolf attack. This was, and I think if they did like HBO took that or something and made or Max, whatever you want to call it now, it's always gonna be HBO to me. Put a mini series on, and each episode like goes through the chapter of the book in a really cool detail, and I think there could be so many ways to do it. And they kind of like, it was kind of a fun movie, but like it didn't capture to me it didn't capture the way the book was. And granted, I love Silver Bullet. It's like I definitely will love that, and I'll watch it whenever it was on, and I own it, and all that. But I think it was like, I think it should have been like, I think a mini series of the actual book Cycle of the Werewolf would be phenomenal if they did it right.
And what's even better is they could call it Cycle of the Werewolf.
Right.
And they did not even call it Silver Bullet.
Yeah. And so they could even it may even like, some people may not even remember the original, and it would lose some comparison. So
no, I totally agree. I almost put that one on there because I don't think the original is. I enjoy it for what it is, but it's not, like you said, it's one of those that's a prime for a remake because they could do it so much better these days.
Oh yeah, and now werewolves are hot property. Wolfman and people love werewolf stuff. That would be, speaking of that, have you seen how good do those creatures look at Epic Universe? Oh my God. We got to do like an episode on that at some point down the road, like a mini-sode just of our thing of that, because that creature animatronic, I saw that, I said, oh my God, Tim's going to die. Tim's going to gonna.
And then did you see the creature? I saw the creature.
I mean, holy cow! I mean, that's like your dream come true, Tim. Like seeing him jump out of you.
I can't wait to go there.
But yeah, side note. So I'm tied for the ones that shouldn't be remade, and I think they're going to be unusual choices. So it's kind of between three of them, and it's only because I think the movies I love so much that and they're more of like a loose, they're more unusual things. So the first one I'm going to say is Stand By Me, which is a unusual
definitely.
choice because that movie is almost, it's just about near perfection, and you will never I don't think you could capture that kind of feel that you did when that movie came. It was the right time, the right cool things, the perfect
time has
cast.
passed. It's just like with It, they had to update it to set the childhood in the 80s versus the 50s.
Yeah.
And I think you'd have to do the same for Stand By Me. Like that book is an encapsulation of childhood growing up in the 50s, early 60s.
Yeah.
So modern audiences wouldn't understand that reference. So if you're going to do it, you'd have to update it. And I don't think the story really works in the 80s.
Yeah.
I think it's of its time, and that's where it needs to stay.
And it could have been at our age when we saw it and how we felt about it, but still, I just can't see a remake of that working the way it needs to.
Yeah.
Like you said. Yeah, I think the time. The next one I'll do is this one's more just because of who was in it, but like Shawshank Redemption. How are you going to beat that cast?
I almost put that one as well, but then I was like, nobody would even like dare. How dare you, sir? Why would you?
Yeah, I don't think they touch it because that was like
nobody should touch that. Such a beloved movie.
Yeah, and I didn't read the story it was based on, but I just know that the movie is so beloved. I mean, Morgan Freeman is perfect. I mean, the cast is perfect for that. The movie was great. You can't touch it. And the last one I'll give more of a King, kind of horror thing going in there, and that's Misery. I think I don't think should be remade because I really don't know what you could add to it. Now, I didn't. Granted, I did not read the book Misery.
I read the book.
People could be screaming at me saying, "Oh no, they could do so much more." But I thought the movie was just like almost like this, like the perfect story the way it was. Like, I mean, you're not going to get better. Can you get better than Kathy Bates as Annie Wilkes? I don't know. I mean, I know they had her in Castle Rock. They had like a
but she was a younger version of
it
her,
was not the same.
That one I think is not that the movie is necessarily so iconic. It's that her portrayal of that character is too iconic to remake.
Yeah.
That one's totally like, how are you going to out Kathy Bates? Kathy Bates, I don't know that you can do it. Like that character has become too iconic. The movie itself is good, but I don't think it's.
Yeah, no, it's the overall movie is just it's good. Yeah, it's good. Okay.
But it's not like The Shining. It's not like it's not like on everybody's top 10 list type movies.
No, and what's sad is Kathy Bates is the only main person from that movie that's still alive, right? I mean, because
James
Caan passed away. The cop and his wife are passed away now.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I mean, what? But like, just you're right. But I think it's Kathy Bates that they can't remake, basically. So it's like, maybe you can make another Misery, but you can't remake Kathy Bates.
Can't remake Kathy Bates.
I mean, even though she's doing her best.
Would a remake of Kathy Bates be called a rebate? I don't know.
Oh, I like that. That's funny. That's a good one. It's almost like too perfect to like laugh at it because it's so clever, Tim. That was really well done. But I think you could. I'm sure. I would love this. Like, how Costa Radio does interactive questions. People should listen to this, write to us, or we should start putting these things out online, like these some of our fan topic foods. Maybe we should start putting that out there when we're done and say, hey, here's what we said. What do you think? And get some interaction going.
I'd love to get some interaction.
But I think right with it was so funny when I was writing this. I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my God, I've always dreamed of a proper Cycle the Werewolf representation. And again, it's not that Silver Bullet was terrible by any means. It just didn't. I don't know. I just felt like it was. It could be improved on, it's, by a lot, kind of thing.
Well,
and
I think the cases for remakes are when the original subject matter did not adhere to the original source property fully or adequately. Option B, it was of a time in which they couldn't pull off the effects.
Right.
Like you could do the effects so much better these days with what we have. Or 3, which I think is the third case, which is where Silver Bullet lies, is where maybe not necessarily a bad movie, but it wasn't an iconic movie.
Right.
And not necessarily that it wasn't faithful to the source material, but there's just more you could do now. It's like doing a cover version of a song where, you feel like you could add something to it and there's room to add something to it. I think that's
one. It needs more cowbell,
Yeah, it needs more cowbell or it needs, whatever. But I think that's I almost put that one. I really almost put that one, but then I thought about Dark Tower, and then I went on a whole.
Oh yeah, no. With you, I knew that when I was writing this, I'm like, there's no way Tim's going to deviate from Dark Tower. I mean, he may put an honorable mention in there, but if he does not shout out Dark Tower first, I'm gonna and I wanted to tell you something to show you how, at first, how inconsequential, because it was called Silver Bullet. I didn't even realize it was it was based off of Cycle the Werewolf until I finally saw the movie. I'd seen Silver Bullet listed there, but I didn't know it was until I finally watched it on cable. I'm like, wait a minute, this is Cycle the Werewolf. Like, I
I
didn't even know.
The only reason, I mean, I knew it from an early age because I watched as soon as I started reading Stephen King, I didn't stop reading Stephen King. So I read Cycle the Werewolf like really early on. So I knew
No, the book
that
I
from
read right away. I read it like right when it came out. It was the movie. I didn't realize they had made that movie was the same thing
Oh,
because it was like I looked back and I'm like, I just saw it like at that point, there was no internet. So,
yeah.
like I guess movies could pass you by and you not realize they came out or anything. And it wasn't until it was on HBO and I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, look at this thing. This looks cool. And I'm
This
like, wait a
totally
minute.
rips off Cycle of the Werewolf.
I that's what I was thinking. I'm like, and then I'm like, oh my God, this is Cycle the Werewolf, isn't it? And like again, it's like all the performances. Like Gary Busey is probably one of my favorite roles he's done as Uncle Red, and like Corey Haim was great. That it had that like the right cast at the time for it. It's
Yeah.
just I
That's a
I
great
don't know. I just
choice.
love this. I'd love to see like it actually would be really even cool if they can never find a way to make it like to make a regular like live action miniseries because the imagery in the book was so like those photos that they had in each chapter were so great.
I love that. Yeah.
An animated miniseries of Cycle World I'd be fine with too if they did it really well
That
done
would
with
be
like really
cool,
good
yeah.
animation. So I think they just need to start talking to us, Tim. We have a
I
lot of
know
good
we got
ideas
a
here.
lot of ideas. I'm a big Stephen King fan. I can tell you exactly what to
Yeah.
adapt. Yeah. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that
Yes.
Halloween episode. Have
Definitely
a happy
a longer
Halloween.
one, so sorry.
Yeah. Have a safe and happy Halloween. I know we're going to do as you're listening to this, we're prepping or maybe in the middle of trick-or-treating. So we're going to do our typical put a table at the end of the driveway, blast some Halloween playlist, and wait for the kids to come up, and we hand out candy. I got glow bracelets this year.
Nice.
So we're going to have the animatronic witch out front. Yeah, it's going to be fun. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to, apparently we don't get many trick-or-treaters around here, even though we have a big bowl of candy, which I've already been eating out of, which is not a good thing. But I think, I might just like say, I think I'm probably just going to end up like, grabbing, we'll get some food in. I'll probably watch my two classics that I like to watch on Halloween, which is the original Halloween and Trick or Treat.
Yeah.
I might do a double feature of that. If I'm still up, maybe throw in some other fun ones that I like. And just kind of do that for because and if trick or treaters come to the door, I'll although they'll probably run as soon as Obi and all the other dogs start barking. But yeah, so we have a bowl ready in case should we get some trick or treaters. They're college area, so it's like it's
not a lot of kids.
They're just gonna be drunk and rowdy all over the place. So we don't get many kids coming, from what I understand. But it's kind of sad because I've always wanted to like do that. So
I mean, it's gonna be nice here. It's like gonna be like 70. I mean, it's gonna be really and like perfectly clear skies. The kids have Friday off as a teacher's work day, so I'm expecting a big turnout. We'll see. I know we had about 100 last year. I'm expecting about the same amount this year, if not a little more. So,
nice.
I've got 300 pieces of candy. So that's it. After 300 kids, I'm out.
You should have like a light up neon thing. Like, okay, 40 pieces left, 20 pieces left. And actually, you know what? Just one suggestion before I let you go. I think what you should do is, in order to get the candy, they have to answer our fan topic food question, so we get a really good base of
there you go.
I'm
gonna ask
by the way, what do you
7-year-olds.
think of Cycle the Werewolf, young kid dressed as Taylor Swift?
Or I'll just what's your favorite scary movie? I'll do the little ghost face thing.
Oh yeah, you should.
Okay, guys, we'll see you back here soon. We're gonna have our November dismemberments coming up. I can't believe it's November already. And
next week will be like we'll wrap up the horror challenge. We'll go through our usual episode. I'll have one more haunt to talk about.
We got another interview coming up.
And an interview coming. Yeah, we're gonna have a packed week next week. So we could possibly end up with 3 episodes next week, depending how it plays out. So we don't know.
See how it goes. All right, guys, take care. We'll see you soon.
See ya.